Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to the intermediate course of my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Erin. In this lesson, we will learn how to say even if I don't do this or that. Let's begin. Hajimemashou. In this lesson, we will learn how to say even if I don't in Japanese. I put the I in brackets because that can also change to you, he, she, it, or some other noun. Examples of the conjugation we will learn in this video are even if I don't eat, 食べなくても, even if it's not hot, 暑くなくても, even if it's not quiet, 静かじゃなくても, even if you're not a friend, 友達じゃなくても. The first example is a verb, second is an E-adjective, third example is a Na-adjective, and the last one is a noun. The formula for making these conjugations is to take their negative te forms and adding the particle mo to form nakutemo. Now, where does nakute come from? It comes from the negative conjugation of the verb, adjective, and noun. In general, that nai changes to nakute, which is the negative te form, and we tack on the particle mo to form nakutemo. We will tackle each case separately. Let's start with verbs. Nakutemo. If you recall the 10 basic verb conjugations, which we tackled in lessons 26 to 30 for each verb category, the conjugation that we use for even if I don't is the nai form of the verb. In general, when you hear a don't or not in the conjugation, the root you use for that conjugation is the nai form. To illustrate that, here's what happens. From the nai form of the verb, you convert nai to nakute. Nakute is the negative te form of the verb. Then to that we add mo to form nakutemo. Let's review how this is formed for all three verb categories. For category 1 or root-dropping verbs, let's look at the verb taberu or to eat as our example. Taberu conjugates to tabenai for the negative, will not eat. And from tabenai we form the negative te form, tabenakute. Then we add the particle mo to form tabenakutemo, tabenakutemo, which means even if I don't eat. You can review basic verb conjugation of category 1 verbs in lesson 26. For category 2 or last hiragana changing verbs, the last hiragana of the dictionary form is not dropped but changes to its A series. These are the 9 kinds of endings: kugusu, bumunu, rutsu, and u. And these are their A series equivalents: kagasa, bamana, rata, and wa. Then we append nai to form the negative. Then from the negative we form the negative te form nakute and add the particle mo to form nakutemo. For conjugating category 2 verbs, it's the verb ending you need to pay attention to and what they turn into. You can review basic verb conjugation for category 2 verbs in lessons 27 to 29. For the 5 commonly used category 3 or irregular verbs, suru to do becomes shinai, and that transforms to shinakutemo. Kuru to come becomes konai, and turns to konakutemo. Iku to go becomes ikanai, then ikanakutemo. Negative of aru is nai, and that transforms to nakutemo. And the negative of da is janai or dewanai, and that transforms to janakutemo or dewa nakutemo. Let's practice making the nakutemo conjugation from very common verbs in all verb categories. Keep in mind the rules for conjugating the nai form from verb categories 1, 2, and 3. Let's start with category 1 or the root-dropping verbs. Miru means to see, and minakutemo means even if I don't see. Again, the I is in brackets because it can also be you, he, she, a person, or an animal, depending on your sense. Neru is to sleep, and nenakutemo means even if I don't sleep. And now on to category 2 verbs. Kaku means to write, and kakanakutemo means even if I don't write. Nugu means to take off clothes, and nuganakutemo means even if I don't take my clothes off. Hanasu means to speak, and hanasanakutemo means even if I don't speak. Hakobu means to carry or transport. Hakobanakutemo means even if I don't carry or don't transport. Yomu means to read, and yomanakutemo means even if I don't read. Shinu means to die, and shinanakutemo means even if I don't die. Tsukuru means to make, and tsukuranakutemo means even if I don't make. Matsu means to wait, and matanakutemo means even if I don't wait. Tsukau means to use, and tsukawanakutemo means even if I don't use. And for the category 3 verbs, kuru means to come, and konakutemo means even if I don't come. Iku means to go, and ikanakutemo means even if I don't go. Suru means to do, and shinakutemo means even if I don't do. Aru means to exist for things and plants. Nakutemo means even if there's none. Da means to be, is, are, or am. Janakutemo means even if it isn't. Now let's look at example sentences. They're simply the opposite or sentences that are similar to what we used in the previous lesson on the even if conjugation of lesson 50. The negative form of taberu is tabenai. The negative te form is tabenakute, and adding mo forms tabenakutemo, which means even if I don't eat. Even if I don't eat a lot, I get fat. In Japanese, takusan tabenakutemo futotte shimau. Takusan tabenakutemo futotte shimau. I use the te shimau conjugation here to express the feeling of regret that it's unfortunate I get fat even if I don't eat a lot. To review the te shimau conjugation, you can watch lesson 42. Isogu means to hurry. It's a category 2 verb. Plain negative is isoganai. Negative te form, isoganakute, and adding mo forms isoganakutemo, which means even if I don't hurry. Even if I don't hurry, I'll still make it on time. In Japanese, isoganakutemo mada maniaimasu. Isoganakutemo mada maniaimasu. Another category 2 verb osu means to push, and its nai form is osanai. Negative te form, osanakute, and adding mo forms osanakutemo, which means even if I don't push. Even if I don't push the button, the drink comes out. In Japanese, botan wo osanakutemo nomimono ga demasu. Botan wo osanakutemo nomimono ga demasu. Yasumu means to rest, and its nai form is yasumanai. Negative te form, yasumanakute, and adding mo forms yasumanakutemo, which means even if I don't rest. Even if I don't rest, I'm not tired. Yasumanakutemo tsukaremasen. Yasumanakutemo tsukaremasen. Our last example is a category 3 verb, benkyou suru, which means to study. we conjugate the verb suru here. The nai form is benkyou shinai. Negative te form, benkyou shinakute. And adding mo forms benkyou shinakutemo, benkyou shinakutemo, which means even if I don't study. Even if she doesn't study, she passes. In Japanese, 彼女は勉強しなくても合格します。彼女は勉強しなくても合格します。Next, let's look at how to say even if it's not with E-adjectives, which is くなくても, くなくても. To illustrate what happens with E-adjectives, let's look at our example, the E-adjective 高い, which means expensive or high. The negative is 高くない, which means not expensive or not high. The negative te form is 高くなくて, and adding mo to it forms 高くなくても, 高くなくても, which means even if it's not expensive or even if it isn't high. You can review E-adjectives and their basic conjugations in lesson 15. And using it in a sentence, even if the car isn't expensive, he won't buy it. In Japanese, 車が高くなくても彼は買いません。車が高くなくても彼は買いません。車 takes the particle ga as the subject of the subordinate clause, while kare takes the particle wa as the subject of the main clause or topic of the sentence. Atsui means hot, and its nai form is atsukunai. Negative te form, atsukunakute, and adding mo forms atsukunakutemo, atsukunakutemo, which means even if it's not hot. Even if it's not hot, she turns on the air conditioner. In Japanese, 暑くなくても彼女は冷房をつけます。暑くなくても彼女は冷房をつけます。Now let's look at the case for na-adjectives and nouns, which is じゃなくても, じゃなくても. We mentioned over several occasions, such as in lesson 16 on na-adjectives, that na-adjectives are grammatically nouns. And when you have a noun as the predicate in a sentence, we use the verb da or des as our verb. This is the very first sentence structure you learned way back as early as lesson 5. A is B. A wa B des. And the nai form of the verb des is janai or dewanai. Negative te form is janakute or dewanakute, and adding mo forms janakutemo or dewanakutemo, which means even if it's not. Our example is the na-adjective shizuka, which means quiet. Its nai form is shizuka janai. Negative te form, shizuka janakute, and adding mo forms shizuka janakutemo, shizuka janakutemo, which means even if it's not quiet. Even if the library is not quiet, I study there. In Japanese, using plain form, 図書館が静かじゃなくてもあそこで勉強する。図書館が静かじゃなくてもあそこで勉強する。上手な means skillful or good at. We first encountered this na-adjective back in lesson 8 on expressing ability. Its nai form is 上手じゃない or 上手ではない。Negative te form is 上手じゃなくて or 上手ではなくて。And adding mo forms 上手じゃなくても or 上手ではなくても, which means even if I'm not skillful or even if I'm not good at. Even if I'm not good at it, I will sing. In Japanese, 上手じゃなくても歌います。上手じゃなくても歌います。Now let's look at nouns. Eiga means movie. Nai form is 映画じゃない or 映画ではない。Negative te form is 映画じゃなくて or 映画ではなくて。And adding mo forms 映画じゃなくても or 映画ではなくても, which means even if it's not a movie. Even if it's not an interesting movie, I watch it. In Japanese, 私は面白い映画じゃなくても見ます。私は面白い映画じゃなくても見ます。Kodomo means child. Negating it forms kodomo janai or kodomo de wa nai. Negative te form is kodomo janakute or kodomo de wa nakute. Adding mo forms kodomo janakutemo or kodomo de wa nakutemo, which means even if it's not a child. Even if you're not a child, you may ride the merry-go-round. In Japanese, あなたは子供じゃなくてもメリーゴーランドに乗ってもいいです。あなたは子供じゃなくてもメリーゴーランドに乗ってもいいです。The てもいいです conjugation denotes permission. You can review this conjugation in lesson 37. In this lesson, we learned how to say even if I don't in Japanese. For example, even if I don't eat, 食べなくても. Even if it's not hot, 暑くなくても. Even if it's not quiet, 静かじゃなくても. Even if you're not a friend, 友達じゃなくても. This conjugation applies to verbs, E-adjectives, Na-adjectives, and nouns. The formula for making these conjugations is to take their negative te forms and adding the particle mo to them, nakutemo. This is the opposite of the conjugation temo, or even if, which we learned in the previous lesson, lesson 50. So this ends our lesson on even if I don't, nakutemo. I look forward to having you again in the next lesson. お疲れ様でした。If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly upon. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。